there's Baruch Hashem, we have a very diverse yeshiva, and very diverse. Yeah. And a lot of times we very respectfully disagree with each other. This is one thing that I think we can all agree upon, that everyone thinks there that there's a value to taking a break from the base midrash. Sometimes you have to close the Gemara. Sometimes you have to stretch your muscles a little bit and actually experience life outside the world of base midrash. That being said, the question we come to address today is, so what should that look like? What are healthy avenues to go ahead and experience the outer world? What are healthy ways that you can go ahead and spend your free time in ways which are not, educational per se? They're not things which are specifically connected to Talmud Torah. So that's going to be the discussion today. We have a few different panelists. They're obviously going to have different approaches on how to relate to this, but the general consensus is that this is something that you should be doing. This is something positive. This is part of a healthy religious life. And therefore, the question is how to approach it. So the first question that we're going to address is, do you think there's a role for entertainment outside of Judaism? And what are healthy venues to go ahead and partake in order to have that expression? So we're going to start with Judah, and we'll take it on from that.
I said, like, role for entertainment and healthy out of expression.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say something that actually might sound, I don't know, I don't want to characterize it. Well, I'm just gonna say it, and you'll see it might sound a little bit unexpected. I'm actually not sure, given your introduction, Gavriel. You opened up with, we all agree there's time to take. I agree that there's time to take up the big matters. I'm not actually sure that I necessarily accept the premise of there being a role, at least a principle, for entertainment outside of Judaism, but it's because I see it within Judaism. So what do I mean by that? In other words, I can see three different, to me, solid reasons for doing something fun. Get out there, do whatever it is that's fun. I could see doing something fun because that is necessary for my mental health and well-being. I've been working really hard. I've been learning hard. I have a job, whatever it is that you're doing in life. Sometimes a person just says, okay, this is too much. I'm finding myself frazzled. I need to take some time. I need to do something that would be either vegetative or enjoyable with a friend, but something to clear my head would be one. So basically for my mental health. Second possibility is doing something that would be bonding with other people. In other words, I'm not personally a football fan. I'm happy for all those of you who are. I don't really care. Every single football game I have watched in the last 15 years has been to watch a game with my son. Why? Because he wants to watch football games. So we're going to watch football games together. It's a great bonding experience. We really enjoy ourselves. We're talking about it. He's teaching me about the game or who the players are and his fantasy league and all this kind of stuff. So we're enjoying it. So watch with friends, something that's a bonding experience. If I don't really watch TV on my own, but I would watch a program with family because we're spending time together. So I have mental health, I have bonding with other people, or I have something that I think is productive. Now, there are other endeavors in the world besides Talmud Torah. I think Talmud Torah is an incredibly productive endeavor. There are lots of other endeavors that are meaningful, productive things where you learn something, you do something, something comes out of it that is a constructive, positive. So on the MISA level, it means that I would spend a reasonable amount of time doing things other than explicit Torah or mitzvah, like explicit kadosh thing, because there are many cases where I need something for my mental well-being, I need a break, I need it for spending time with other people, or I find to constructive together. My problem is your phraseology to go through. If you're saying, what would I find outside of Judaism? To me, that is
I'm an objective Judaism.
Okay, yeah, fine, so good. So then, yeah, I would consider that very much a part of Judaism because I think that I'm meant to live a life that incorporates all different elements. But to me, that's still 24-hour a day Judaism. But that's my take. So.
Thank you so much for Judah.
Okay, so I think you guys want like a real spicy panel. It may not be as spicy as you want, but I think different perspectives are going to be helpful here. So I'll agree with what you just said. I think I just expand a couple of things. One is, take the perspective. The idea that we have time to waste is a relatively new idea, right? In terms of human history, most of human history, you have to spend your entire day making a living, whatever it might be, right? Working really hard, usually physically. And then you didn't, when the night came, there wasn't a lot of lights. You didn't go to bed late. Instead of in Camp Stone, we're very near some of the Amish, and we always laugh. Like, but the Amish schedule is so wild. Like they show up at camp at 5 a.m. and they go to bed at 8 p.m. Because once it gets dark, they're basically their night is done, and there's not a lot of wasted time there. And we have this luxury, thank God, of having being able to make incomes that we can work only certain times. We have the ability of we have technology that allows us to stay up pretty late and do other things. So we have a lot of time to kill a lot of times, and that's sort of one of the dangers, I would say, actually in our culture. But it's okay. So we have to figure out what do we do with that time. Do we only spend that time debating drives or doing highly productive things, or not? So that's framing the question a bit. I think I would differentiate also between two different types of, I guess, quote unquote entertainment. One is more passive and one is more active. Meaning a passive form of entertainment would be, let's say, like just watching TV, okay, watching movies. That's very passive. You're not really doing much. Positive, or active entertainment might be a hobby, right? Maybe I really enjoy painting. Maybe I really enjoy, I don't know, electric trains. I don't know, whatever it might be. Maybe I like, I'll say myself, I like doing crossword puzzles, okay? So maybe it's something like that. It's you're a little more active. You're engaging your body or your brain in a way. And that's also a difference. I would make that distinction. I think, I'll speak for myself. I think we tend to be more in favor of the more active type of things rather than the more passive things, generally speaking, because those feel more productive. And I guess that's sort of like the next thing I'll just say, which is, not a depend on the safe thing, which is that I think the ultimate question is within the world of entertainment, how much is what I'm doing productive or complete mind killer? Am I just sort of literally wasting time, just passing the time away before I go to bed? It's 11 p.m. I can't go to bed at 11. It's too early. So I might as well just scroll through my Instagram feed for the next 2.5 hours and then go to bed at about more reasonable 1:30 a.m. Where I really didn't do anything, but whatever, just feels and at the end I probably feel a little guilty, wow, I didn't really accomplish anything. Or maybe I was doing something really productive, maybe being with friends or whatever it might be, which is a more productive form of entertainment which, again, I think has some value. Okay, we'll get into more, I'll continue to give you details as we go, but so that's some respect.
So Gantz posed the question more in generic, general term. So I'll keep my answer also very general, and maybe the questions above, and the next few questions will be more specific. So I think that entertainment outside the walls of the base medrash are very important, and not only in terms of being able to rejuvenate for the base medrash. Right? So sometimes I say, well, I'm going to go exercise so I can keep myself fit. So, B'ezrat Hashem, the full day of learning that I'm going to be able to do I'm going to be able to do that. So that's certainly valuable. And I think that sometimes you want to go play ball because you want to go play ball. And it doesn't have to be only because I'm rejuvenating myself for the Beit Midrash, although that is a wonderful outcome as well. I think the challenge is kind of like when you have your entertainment time, what does that say about you globally? So I'll just focus for a moment because I think of my, Rabbi Hadi and Rabbi Judah already said a lot of what I wanted to share as well. I'll talk about when you have lots of entertainment time. Not when you go back to the dorms at night or kind of maybe on an Erev Shabbos, but you have now Hanukkah break coming up, where you have a few days where you're off totally. So the question is, when you shift into entertainment mode, where is the base medrash during that time? Where is, you're using 740 chakras, minchas at the end of, it's all set out for you. We're going to daven mincha at the end of morning seder, and then at the end of night seder, we daven marek every night. So it's all there. The question is next week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, before you come back to the dorms, where is the base medrash and all of that? Where is Shachas Mincha Marev during that time? When you have Pesach break this coming summer, where is your time that you're learning in the Beit Midrash? Baruch Hashem, I have lots and lots of nachas with my kids. But I remember one school we went on. It was about 10 years ago. So, about 8-9 years ago, my two eldest sons had already started yeshiva, and we were hiking up in the Golan, and it was a tough hike. So I'm carrying just my water bottle. I'm giving the weight to my sons to carry their backpack, and I'm huffing and I'm puffing. And we break for lunch. And as we break for lunch and we're eating our sandwiches, I see both of them pull out from their backpacks, which already have a lot of stuff in the family, big Masifta Gemaras that they had been schlepping along all during the hike. And they kind of said, okay, lunch break, however long we take, now we have a chance to learn. So I'm not asking necessarily from that right now from you, but this kind of idea to plant in your heads, when I have my entertainment time, what am I doing?
All right. I'm going to try to make 3 points in under a minute. Okay, just really reformulations. Number one, I doing what everybody said. There's this thing, producing and consuming entertainment. I think producing is more valuable, learning to play an instrument, even learning to play basketball, because that involves effort and work and patience and the like, whereas opposed to passive consuming. Okay, number two, I think one of the issues is not just the quality, but there's quality and a quantity issue. How much time do we dedicate towards entertainment? As you've heard from me in the past, if you're on university campus, unless you are studying organic chemistry, mechanical engineering, or architecture, you have too much free time in your hands. And that's a challenge and opportunity that you should be using well. Thirdly, in terms of the quality of entertainment, I would say there's 3 categories. Category 1 is things that are both entertaining and actually positive. Quality 2 is things that are entertaining and neutral. Quality 3 is things that are entertaining and negative. Obviously, we would like to avoid category 3. And to the degree that 1 could be more prominent than 2, that would be the thing. Oh, you missed it.
Okay, so I think we have a clear, good, nice start of the breakdown of how to approach different forms of entertainment. I'd like to start discussing, more specific examples. So the first example I want to talk about is the world of sports. Sports, on one hand, is a very nice, healthy recreational outlet. It lets for, bonding, it lets for competition. But there's also, a concept of overdoing it. People develop, there's kids who want to be in the Olympics, and from the time of a young age, the whole life revolves around how fast can they swim and can they get half a second shorter down in each lap. Whatever it is. So both in the world of actually engaging in the playing of sports, but also in the world of being a spectator, watching popular sports, being part of fantasy football leagues. Is this something which is a healthy outlet, and how to relate to that? So we're going to start with Adi.
Okay. Like we talk about playing sports and consuming or watching sports. I think I'll relate more to the watching sports. Actually, I think would be more relevant. I'll tell you a quick story. So I have a friend who, from guy, yeshiva guy, got married, and his wife wanted to be was very excited that her husband is a base medrash guy. Came the first Sunday of their marriage, and he sat down to watch football. And she said, "Whoa, football! Like, what's going on? Like, like." And he said, "Well, I always watch whatever. Let's say it's the Giants. Like, I always watch the Giants." So she said, "Okay, let's play supportive wife. Every guy needs a break." So he watched he watched the Giants game. That's 3 hours. Okay, and then I'm sure you know that. And then she said, "Okay, game's over. Let's go do something." He said, "What are you talking about? There's a 4 o'clock game." And she said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, of course, it's 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then there's the Sunday night football." So she was very distressed by that, and he was sort of confused what her problem was. So, okay, I think lots of men have this issue. So I think that's an important question, sort of like, again, the quantity of what we're doing. What do you think you're getting out of the experience? And for Judas said, there are positive things to get out of, let's say, watching sports, following sports. There's a lot of things, again, there's camaraderie if you do fantasy. I'm not into fantasy, but there's camaraderie there, right? You talk to your friends about it. You discuss those things. Whatever, maybe you watch the game, maybe with friends. There's something nice. There's something nice about feeling part of something bigger. I'm a big fan of that. Pun intended. There's a bigger concept than me, and thank you. And
I know I need to respond.
I know, thank you. Right, where it's nice to feel like I'm part of, Patriots Nation. Like it feels good. It feels good, Look, Lahavdil. It's like it feels good to be part of the Jewish nation. That's more important, right? But we generally like the idea of being part of something bigger, and there's something very special there. I like to tell sometimes, like, one of the greatest spiritual moments, I'm embarrassed to say, but I'll say it in public. One of the greatest spiritual moments of my life is when I had a chance to go to the 1997 AFC Championship game in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And when the Patriots took the field, the place felt concerned. I felt like a spiritual moment, like the unity of the crowd was great. There's something very powerful there. I can appreciate that. I really can. And I'm also, maybe I'm a little embarrassed to say, I'm probably one of the only Rebbe's on the panel, maybe the only who regularly watches sports. Okay, so I like you guys know how. Okay. All that being said, I do think it's important to have a couple things in terms of perspective. Okay, one is I think the amount of investment in that time. Realizing, look, if I'm taking this football, let's say as an example, and that's going to be my break for a little bit. It's a long week, and it's a long busy days, family, and whatever responsibilities we all have. And to carve out a little time, to enjoy some, to kick back and watch something, and I think it's harmless, whatever it is. Let's call it neutral for Blau. Maybe it's neutral, kicking towards a little bit of positive. Let's say. Okay, so I think that's reasonable. Do I admit that if you watch too much sports, do I feel like it's you don't have to watch all the games? Red zone is probably like the greatest invention of NFL sports, and it's also probably the worst because on the one hand, it allows you to get a sense of all the games. It also gives you a chilek in all the games, and basically you can watch Red Zone like it's all day long, commercial free. It's really dangerous. So you have to be careful. I think with those things like how much are you invested? I guess I'll just say. I'll tell you an interesting personal story, which is I had a point in my life where I basically was mostly sports free, and it basically was when the time I entered yeshiva, probably through the end of yeshiva. Okay. And what was interesting to see, it wasn't because I thought it was us, or just I don't know, I was busy with other things and whatever it was. And it was interesting to note that with things like that, I think it's really true with sports, when you're not actively engaged in it, you don't really care about it. Right? And it's not that sports has some fundamental value that if you're missing it, it's I really missed some element in my life. It's a nice way of entertainment. But again, so realizing wow, I really didn't miss the sports during that time is a good lesson. Now, I admit I went back and do consume some sports because I do think it adds something for me, whatever it is. I think you have to be careful about again the amount of time and the sort of false sense that it's really important to be actively involved and that it really does matter. It doesn't matter that much. It matters a little. You have to be careful with it.
Okay, so I think we all know how much I love sports. And I will agree that it does have a place from camaraderie and, Rebbe Judah was mentioning watching with his son. I think Jack was telling me once how much he would watch with his grandfather. And there's a certain value in that, absolutely. And I don't want to reiterate the entire sports sikha, but I just will share two things for the guys who weren't there. Part of the problem I have with sports is that, at least in my youth, I was too involved in it. Right? I think I told you guys when the Yankees won, it was a great day, no matter what else happened that day. And if the Yankees lost that day, it was a miserable day, no matter what else happened in that day. That's the kind of sports fan that I was, and I have to say, and I have to assume, I'm probably not alone in that kind of thought about how sports will influence your mood and your feeling and how you live your life, whether it's positive or negative. The other thing is that, as I said, if you have to tally how much time you spend on sports a week, as Dardik was talking about his great friend, the 1 o'clock game, the 4 o'clock game, the 8 o'clock game, week in, week out, and that's just football. Forget about baseball and hockey, and then the Olympics come, and then don't forget, we got rugby and cricket we got to follow also, right? And I did. I was in South Africa a few weeks ago, and Moshe Shabbos, I was with my friend. We watched a little bit of rugby, and it was nice. It was a nice camaraderie feeling. The rugby wasn't of an exceptional quality, so I kind of went to sleep early, but it was a nice camaraderie feeling. But nonetheless, you spend hours and hours a week with them. Week after week, month after month, and you have to figure out, at least my stage, in my 50s, I have spent. If you're kind of a passionate sports fan, you have spent probably a year of your life, if not more, on sports with these players who I talked about in the sports sikha, who unfortunately are so often the anti-role model of the way that I want to live my life nowadays. I want to give a whole year of my life, but Bezrat Hashem, I have more years to come, maybe more time in my life. I want to spend it on that. The time that we have is very valuable, is very special. What are we doing with it, and who are we spending it? We all know, if people are not nice people, we don't want to spend time with them, personally. Right? If someone's not a good friend, you don't want to be friends with that person anymore. If someone is nasty to you, you don't want to spend time with that person anymore. right? And so you have to take a look and say, kind of like the sports teams that I'm following, the people who are on them, when I dig a little deeper in who they are, what their life is, are these the type of people I want to spend months and even years of my life with? It's a question I hope, at least, at the very least. I'm not expecting, and I don't think in all the years I've given a sports sikha that anyone has said, you know what, like, okay, you convinced me, I'm done. I'm not out to convince anyone. I'm just sharing my experience. But I would like at least this question is something that you should think about as you devote literally months and years to this.
So, Moshe, at some point, if you could ever tell me about the highest quality cricket game you ever watched, I would be
So
interested
many,
for 30
so many.
seconds of that. Okay.
It's one of the kings of Judah.
Explain it. So, my mental list is playing, time, identification, and musar. Playing. I think there's a huge difference between playing sports and watching sports. I think other panelists have focused on this. I've met quite a number of guys over the years who were convinced that they're really good enough to make it to the majors of whatever sport. You're Jewish. It's very rare. It's very, very rare. Maybe you're that guy, but really ask yourself, are you that guy? Or are you spending a lot of time and it just doesn't happen all that often? That's all playing. But I think I'm a much bigger fan of playing than watching. Time. So there's a lot of time spent here. I disagree with everybody. I actually think Red Zone is my favorite invention here, but that's because I'm a weirdo and I don't have that much time that I'm willing to spend on movies either. When I fly, I fly a decent amount. I usually sleep or I work, but when I can't, United lets you watch movies and fast forward with subtitles. That works for me. I get like a whole movie in like 25 minutes. So like Red Zone sounds like a great thing. Like, if I want to watch the game, why don't I watch the plays that actually made a difference? And not all the plays that did make a difference.
I'm bored about
that
it.
works for me. It's totally, sounds very, very attractive. In terms of identification, so it's a little bit related to something you were mentioning. My first date with I was a big sports fan in middle school, and then a couple of things happened. I went to high school, I became Shomer Shabbos, which now meant Saturday games were off. I also had to get a job, so I was working Sundays 10 to 8. And then dual curriculum, full days, high school, etc. I had no time. So I basically stopped watching. And over those coming years, I just really didn't watch it all. And something hit me, which was that, the same way you said, Ramesh, like when the Yankees won, it was a great day. So it hit me at one point, and I told this to my wife on our first date. I said, like, I look at it, and you know, when your team wins, the whole city says, we won. And they throw a ticker tape parade, and everyone's really excited. There's not a single player on that team who knows who Dardik is. I wear their jersey name on my shirt. Like, I'll be wearing their name, their number. They don't know who I am. So here's a bunch of people who are highly paid, excellent athletes. And it is something really beautiful to watch execution in motion. At the same time, to identify with them, I realized like they don't identify with me, they don't know who I am, and I'm feeling like we won, we did that. That really kind of soured a bit of this for me because I realized that like we weren't winning, but I could still enjoy watching the game. At the same time, it just end on Musar, which there is tremendous Musar even in watching. You think about the lessons that you take, and that's why I think it's a very healthy outlet among outlets. Things like, you know, in baseball, if you get on base 1 out of every 3 times, you're hugely successful. I think that's a great life lesson. You don't always have to succeed, right? Watching people refine a craft in which they do it over and over and over again to get it really, really well. Like, Chazara matters for something, and you can get really good at something if you're willing to put in the time. You have to focus. And then you go through the teamwork issues, and you can sometimes get something a little bit wrong, but it was a foul ball, it wasn't a strike. So okay, you can go try again. You can try that endlessly. And so on and so on. I'm using baseball as an example, but go sport to sport. There are a million lessons that you can learn from it that you can, if you're thoughtful about it, actually watch emotions played out in front of you. That's a useful thing.
Okay, so we're going to transition to the next question. I'll just tell you personally, it's hard for me to relate to State Sahara. When I was a kid, my parents had season tickets to the Eagles. The Eagles are notorious for being wild, and we had season tickets in the highest level. We were the third to the highest row in the whole stadium. So it was colorful, to say it in a nice way. And I used to wander around the stadium. I got excited. The most exciting part of the game was when there was a fight in the crowd. It happened at least once every game. But it's hard for me to relate to sports. But another thing that I can relate to, and I for sure can, realize is a struggle and how to balance, is both the concept of entertainment via watching movies and entertainment via watching television. I want the panelists to actually divulge and discuss each one separately. I think each one has its own struggle. And is there a value to engaging in watching movies? Is there a difference between watching The Shawshank Redemption as opposed to The Godfather, as opposed to the latest Marvel Comics movie? Is there a difference between getting involved in a television series? Is there a healthy way to do that within Judaism? Is this antithetical to being a religious Jew? I want to start with Blau, because I know he has very strong feelings about this, and we'll move on to the other panel.
Okay, so as you guys know, I do have my moments of intellectual snobbery. So I'm going to argue forcefully that books have much more potential for productive leisure than movies, TVs, or video games. Okay, and some of it, why this is, could be explained in various ways. There could be practical, historical elements to it, and there could be inherent elements. I'll just start with the practical, historical. Books have been a medium for a lot longer than movies and TV shows. So that means even if there's a tremendous amount of trash out there, there's also much more positive material. Just we've had like 500 years to write reasonable things. Right? The whole movie industry is about a century old, and we haven't done such a great job of producing a tremendous amount of quality movies. Okay, so that's one reason why there are many more worthwhile books out there. If one wants to go to other factors, finances plays a role. Okay, especially today, it's a lot easier to produce a book than to produce a movie. And if you're putting a lot of money in, you want to make money too. And unfortunately, in the world, it's a lot easier to make money from Dumb and Dumber than from a documentary about Gandhi. That's just the reality. Okay, so therefore, there's going to be more money channeled into lousy material. Okay, thirdly, if you want to read this, Neil Postman has arranged a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And Postman argues that it's inherent in the difference between a verbal medium and a visual medium. Now, I understand very well, hang in there, Bacon. I understand very well that there might be advantages to a visual medium also, but maybe there's so many advantages to a verbal medium that books are going to almost invariably have more content than movies and TV. In fact, if you read Postman's book, and you're going to be convinced with it, but Postman says even if we gave over TV programming to the Vatican, right, the quality would still remain the same, right? It wouldn't radically change the quality of TV program. So getting back to what I said in the beginning, I think we'd like to have a leisure that, I should say one more thing. I'm not going to discuss video games, but something interesting happened in my family. We have 4 kids. 2 gave in to my propaganda, 2 did not. Okay, so the older 2 read great books all the time, and the third one is still trying to convince me that video games are valuable. Okay, so you should know there is this discussion going on at the family table. Okay, but in any case, some of you might say, okay, Rebbe, but that's asking for too much. Guys, I am not expecting you to be reading Kant and Kierkegaard in every spare moment. Okay, but there are a lot of lighter books that still have value. Right? Malcolm Gladwell is not difficult to read. Stephen Jay Gould is not difficult to read. I had somebody else written down here. What did I put down here? Oh, Oliver Sacks is not difficult. I'll just give you one chapter and I'll close with this. Oliver Sacks was a famous neurologist who wrote The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Let's say you're reading a Sacks chapter on the following. There's a man who has Tourette's, who also is a surgeon and a pilot, an amateur pilot. Even though people with Tourette's often lunge to touch the wall. So you might think that he'd be the last person in the world to be a surgeon. And yet, it explains how this fellow was able to function as a surgeon. So I would say, that is much more interesting to me than, I don't know, I'll pick something reasonable. Much more interesting than reading BoJack Horseman, watching BoJack Horseman, and it's not so difficult. Again, you don't have to concentrate that hard to read it. So guys, get out there, read the good books. You could have a good time, relax, and actually learn something.
So I'll agree with Blau and offer a little bit of advice. I do agree that books are an ideal form of entertainment. I noticed that in Blau's list, he quoted really only nonfiction, although there's a tremendous amount of enjoyment in fiction as well. And I would say that kind of I think that you guys have grown up not reading so much. And so it might be a difficult skill, or even not just as an entertainment, to all of a sudden just start reading right now. So what I might offer is get it audiobooks. Either there you have Audible through Amazon, or do what I do. 15 years ago, for the first time in 30 years, I got myself a Brooklyn Public Library card, and I have an app. They have an app, and I take out audiobooks all the time. And in my commute, and even just walking sometimes back and forth to the base medrash from my car, I read an audiobook. And it's entertaining, it's thought-provoking, it's something that is kind of like, something that could be very valuable at the same time, but you might find it, for me, it works out because of my lifestyle and the time that I have to devote to it. But even for you guys, when you're exercising or anything, if a book might be too daunting, think about an audiobook. In terms of, what Rav Judah said, so I've already started doing this not just on planes. So if I'm going to watch a movie or a TV show, and I think movies are better than TV shows because TV shows sometimes take too much time. A movie you can be in and out an hour and a half. You can have entertainment. You can watch it. A TV show kind of schleps along for years at a time. And to be honest, there are not many series that are worth that much investment. At one time you start, it's very difficult not to continue on doing it. So what I started doing is, I had a friend of mine who suggested this a couple of years ago that I thought was crazy, and I'm doing it all the time, is if I'm watching something on my computer, I watch it at like 1.5 speed. And it's convenient, and I have to say that action scenes in movies are so much better when you're watching it at 1.5 speed. It's so much fun. So anyway, so just in terms of, but try to read books. You should know that Blau has a list of recommended books that he suggests. I'd reach out to him and get that. I also have a list of books that I think that might be worthwhile. But I really think that a lot of audiobooks might be a great kind of like entry point for you to be able to kind of like then realize how much entertainment and how much knowledge you can get from reading a book.
Okay, I can't disagree that books are great. I'll just give one other plug for books, which is that I'm actually reading right now a Stephen King book, and he mentions in the introduction that one of the a lot of Stephen King books are made into movies. He said that one thing that makes it difficult is that the movie, you have the person who made the movie sort of give you all the scenes and what it all looks like, whereas if you read the book yourself, you create for yourself the imaging and sort of like you imagine yourself how the scene works. There's something really, I think, and at least in terms of like fiction novels, things like that, there's something really positive about it. There's something really nice about having that. I remember reading Harry Potter before the movies came out and reading Harry Potter, rereading it after it came out. It was a very different experience. Okay, but that being said, I will give a little bit of a positive plug for TV and movies, just to be that guy. I think that...
It's so relatable.
Yeah. It's easy to I think I'll say that there is something to be gained from the creative effort of TV and movies. I do think that one of the benefits of streaming services is that you can be a lot more judicious in what you watch. In the olden days, when there were 3 channels and you had to watch what they put on TV, and just sort of like, the old line from Seinfeld, like, you guys probably watch Seinfeld a lot? So when they're picking their shows, they say to George, like, why is it on TV? Why would we watch it? Because it's a show about nothing. And George says, because it's on TV. And the guy says, not yet. But the idea is that that's sort of an idea that people just watch it because it's on TV, right? That's why you watch it. And now you don't watch it because it's on TV. It's overwhelming. You can't just plow through your Netflix or Paramount or Disney Plus or Hulu. You can't just go through, like, there's too much TV. It's overwhelming. On the other hand, you can find out what are really quality series, like what's a quality movie. And I think there's something to be gained from watching how creative people design interesting stories in an interesting way. There's something to be gained from that. Should that be our main effort? No, like I said before, in terms of how much time you give to that, I think it should be limited. But once we're doing it already, I think that you can be very, very selective. I'm not a fan of speeding through movies and TV shows, or sports for that matter. I know where Blau said you can get the highlights and it's the same, and my board about that is that I think there's value to, if you're doing it already, there's value in experiencing it in real time, meaning that TV show is paced in a particular way, a movie is paced in a particular way. Maybe action scenes is different, I agree. And sometimes if I'm bored, I'll fast forward, a scene that I'm not interested in watching. But I think there is value in that because there is a thought process behind some of those things. And I think there's value to be had in that. I like the idea of like if you're watching the football game, there's you can have red zone and get all the highlights, or you can see like, but what actually is happening? Like what did the defense do? There's very few like defensive plays, or what's the pace of the game? Are the team's actually good? I don't only care about fantasy stats. So I think there's what to be gained from those things in entertainment too, in terms of movie and TV shows. And I would say like you have to be again careful of what you do. I guess I'll mention one more element which we haven't explicitly addressed, which is there is also television and movies that I think are straight up us. I mean, I think there's like certain content that I think it goes almost without saying it, but I think it's important to mention. Not everything's allowed. Just because it's on TV doesn't mean a Jew is allowed to consume that particular show or movie. And part of the process is choosing which ones we say and which ones we watch and which ones we don't. If there's, I would say this way, I guess, if you never have a limit on what you're allowed to allow yourself to watch, you're doing something wrong. And if again, you can say it the other way too. If everything is usher, so maybe it's too much. But there's got to be some balance in the middle. Everyone will have a balance differently, but there have to be some things that are totally off limits. Just because it's a great show, Game of Thrones, doesn't mean you're allowed. You should be watching that show. It's not. It doesn't. Again, there's visually and thematically things that really are not conducive to anyone, but especially a Ben Torah. So we have to be careful about that as well.
So, we're welcome to disagree. I'd say that for me, I think it always comes down to an opportunity cost. As there's only 24 hours in my day, I think my time is very precious. So anytime I'm choosing to watch something over having a conversation, which I do a lot of, or doing something else, which I do a lot of, there's a trade-off there. So which one do I think is more valuable? Most often I choose something else. I'm selective. Blau has a movie list that I keep starred in my WhatsApp of basically things that have been pre-vetted. It happens all the time. Guys will say to me, "Oh, Rob, you should see this movie. It's a great movie." So my constant question is, make a case. Why? Why should I spend my time on this? And when I get a lot of it is, "Oh, but it was so funny." I laugh a lot at life. I'm actually having a great time. I'm fine. No need. But you tell me, okay, so this was a really valuable movie. This had a great plot. Really learned something from it. Okay, so now selectively I'll do that over something else. That's part of why I have a lot of trouble with video games. I get if it's relaxing for you and that's a great outlet, good for you. I don't find it relaxing. I actually find them kind of stressful. I don't know, like trying to beat this thing that's trying to beat me. It's just like hard. We do have a family custom of playing specifically Mario Kart in the sukkah as a family. And if we were having this panel 2 months ago, I would have said it's a nice time with my family and end of story. Happens to be that actually about 5 weeks ago, a little after Sukkot, so 6 weeks ago, I had the only episode of vertigo I ever had in my entire life. I was recovering from something, my ear was clogged. I was driving through the tunnels to the Gush. And as I'm driving home, and it's night, and the lights are coming at me, all of a sudden the entire tunnel went like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm driving on the wall of the tunnel, there's a car over there, and I kind of just moved myself up, and then it went back, and it went back. It was really scary. I was trying to get out of traffic, and I literally think I was saving my life. I was like, it's the Rainbow Road. I got this. I totally have this. I can do this. And I pulled over, and it went away, and I went home, and I said, kids, thank you. I'm here, because I knew how to drive like that.
Okay, I just want to add one little piece here. I have my own opinions about movies and television, but I'm not on the panel. I just want to if you're watching, the usual suspects on 1.5 speed, and you're going to appreciate the development of the plot, I don't know. Certain things you have to just watch it. You can't watch the action Saving Private Ryan on 2 times speed. I'm sorry. But putting that aside, we have to wrap up. We can't talk about this all day. The last thing that I want to address is that entertainment is rapidly changing. When I was growing up, you had a television, you hit the box a few times, and the show got a little clearer. We had VHS tapes. You probably don't even know what that is. Then we went to DVDs. Now you don't even know what a DVD is anymore. Last night, I was cleaning up from Shabbos. My 1.5-year-old found some old CDs I had. They threw on all the floor. My little kids were like, what is that? I don't know. So the world has changed. The new mode of entertainment that a lot of you guys struggle with are your cell phones. You have a world of entertainment. It's in your pocket. It's with you 24/6. And then it affects your sleep schedules, it affects your productivity in school, it affects your productivity in relationships. So I would like the Rebbe's just to address, this could be maybe its own panel, but for the short amount of time that we do have left, to address how to go ahead and engage in that struggle and how to go and relate to your phone in a proper way.
Sure. I'm actually not going to discuss phone addiction, although it's a very crucial topic. I'll just discuss various forms of social media, what can be gotten from them. Okay, so Marshall McLuhan, who's the father of culture analysis in university, famously said the medium is the message. And what he meant is that you might think that however I teach something, it doesn't matter, it's the same idea. So it doesn't matter if I give a lecture or a music video or write a poem about it. And McLuhan argued that, no, the medium I use invariably affects the message. And you see this when books are converted to movies, how drastically they change because the medium is indeed the message. That being said, I think I would like to suggest that the medium of Instagram and Twitter were not meant for things of real substance, and therefore they're really not worth your time. Facebook is not great, but it depends who you're reading. If certain people are, okay, and the one thing I think a new medium that has become productive is the world of podcasts. I think there are very positive podcasts to listen to, both in the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world, if you like history and science and things like that. So if we're talking about what can be used in the new world of social media in a more productive way, I think a lot of you should look into the world of podcasts. I think Pastor Rebbe have podcasts they listen to. It could be Rav David is the king of this. I know he's only here once a week, but I say he'd love to discuss the 12 best podcasts to listen to. And think about which medium you're using, and not just the specific program.
Okay, so in terms of related to your cell phones, I think that I could recommend a Netflix documentary, first and foremost. I think it's called The Social Dilemma. I watched it a few years ago, but you can search for it. I think also, you don't have to watch it on 1.5 speed, because the first 45 minutes gives you everything. The second 45 minutes is chazara. So usually I'm a big fan of chazara, you don't need it. You can watch the first half. But 2 main points that come out of it, and suggestions I would make about your cell phones. One is, I think he was from one of the original founders of Twitter, who was a coder, and he wasn't a business guy, he was a technical guy, and he said, I helped design it that you can't keep yourself away from it. And he said, I designed it. I know all the tricks. He says, I am manipulated by it myself. It created something that is just like too manipulative. So just keep that in mind. That the Facebook, Meta, whatever, TikTok and everything, these are what they said. Here it is. Here's the line that I remember now. They're all free, these apps. How are they making money? So it said, if you're in life, if you don't know how the company is making money because it's free, then you are the product. You just don't realize it yourself. Okay? And that's the method of manipulation. So just one other thing that I can tell you that also was suggested, turn off notifications. Now again, how are you going to be able to do this? Turn off notifications or turn off X or turn off Instagram when you're so involved in it. So Rav Judah showed you a way of doing it. Right? In the silent retreat. So start now by maybe picking an hour a day during the middle of the day. Right, where you will turn off notifications on your phone, let's say from 1:30 to 2:30 every single day. Just 1 hour, try that. 1 hour where you'll either turn off notifications, you'll silence your phone except for emergency, that only your contacts, only your close contacts can get hold of you. Start from there. See if you can do that. If you can't even do that, if I can't even do that, then we are that's a whole nother sikha we have to have, as Blau mentioned, about mamash addiction. But that could be a good start to trying to see, can I be able to do that at least?
Okay, just maybe 2 quick points. One is I agree that podcast is a great way to use your phone. One of the working in the old city for me is great. One of the downsides is it takes a long time to get here and to get home. One of the ways I keep myself busy during that time is podcasts. I think there's a lot to be gained. Really a lot of really wonderful and informative educational podcasts. One thing I just mentioned in terms of phones that I think makes it tricky is as follows. For people who are trying to be careful about how you utilize entertainment, so I know we keep saying like when I was growing up, right? So there was, like I said, like TV was scheduled, and you could only watch the show when they were showing it to you. And the only way you could watch the TV was actually to watch on the television. You had to fight with your siblings what show you get to watch. You didn't have always everyone have their own TV. Like the idea of a TV in your room is like crazy. So having a TV in your pocket, I think, makes it trickier. So sometimes I think, sometimes I would say we'll say to ourselves I'm not trying to watch a movie now. That's a waste of my time. I'm going to take 2 hours of entertainment. So I'll just go on Instagram or X or whatever it is. Or TikTok, and just a couple minutes, I'll just, I need a break, so I'll do that. And then you realize, the amount of time you were on TikTok was the same amount of time that you could have watched a movie. And I think that's one of the tricky things. It's very hard to control the amount of time that we spend on our phones. So if I could make a recommendation, I guess, within that realm of, assuming we're using our phones for these types of things, if you can, it sounds almost counterintuitive, decide what you want to watch or what you want to do and watch that thing. I don't know, it's hard to say. The phenomenon of binging is not that just that you're watching a lot of shows at once, it's that you watch one, you can't almost help it. That they get you in. Netflix, when you finish a show on Netflix, it automatically starts the next show, right? Because it's not like it's just over and it shuts off. That's on purpose, right? So I think to me that's one of the challenges we have to be careful with. Is again, I keep saying this about how much time, but that's one of the issues. So sometimes it's almost better to say I'm going to actually dedicate myself to watching this TV show, and maybe that'll be it. It's hard. I don't know. It's a tough struggle. I don't know. I think everyone struggles with it, but I think that's one of the dangers that we have to be very aware of.
So I think this is one of those examples of where Chazal are really onto something very, very astute, even though it was thousands of years ago. Mishnah Perkavod says there are kinna taiva v'kavod motzina ta'adam min olam. So jealousy, taiva, desire, and pursuit of honor take a person out of this world. So basic shot is it ends your life or it takes you out of the world to come or something like ha'olam, olam haba. One of my favorite explanations of that is these are 3 things that take you out of this world, meaning you can't be present in the experience that you're having if you're having a moment of intense kinna, taiva, or kavod. So you ask yourself, what are you looking at on whatever is on your phone? So a lot of it is kinna. If you think about all the FOMO of people are together, they're not actually having a great time, but we're going to take a photo and we're going to post it. So we're going to go like this. Everybody's going to get together and it's, oh my God, we're having the best time ever until after we take a picture, then we post it. And the guy who's sitting at home in his room says, oh, I missed out. Right? So I have kinna of everybody else because everybody else is clearly always having a great time and I'm the loser who's not. Not actually necessarily true, but it'll totally take you out of your reality. Taiva, there's a lot on phones. Okay. Kavod, moving on. So kavod, the concern about I, could be, should be doing this, and you're watching what everyone else is doing, not so much from a FOMO perspective, but from a what am I, and what am I actually accomplishing, but then being lost in this whole story of somebody else. So I'd ask yourself, is what I'm looking at bringing something to my reality? Or is what I'm looking at taking me out of my reality, taking me out of my world and putting me into somewhere else, where frankly I might not even be that happy? If it's contributing something, so there's a tremendous amount to be gained. I think it's a huge thing. You can carry an unbelievable computer in your hand and have access to just endless information with you at all times. That's incredible. It's hugely efficient, very helpful. What a great thing. But is it bringing something to me, or am I disappearing into it and losing my own reality? That's not so fun.
Okay, guys, so you've heard from a variety of panelists on a large array of topics. Obviously, this is the beginning of a discussion. There are a lot of points we didn't get to discuss. There are things that you can ask other panelists, other Rebbeim in the yeshiva, that if you feel like you want to address it. And there's practical applications, sometimes there's different situations in life. I watched a movie with the yeshiva when we went on the Gush Etzion Tiul. I think it was the first movie I watched in I don't know how many years. But things happen in life, and say there's a time and place for everything. So that being said, the Rebbeim are here, the conversation is here, and the Beis Midrash is here now for you to continue your growth in the greater perspective of how to make Judaism a part of your life, but also just sitting with the Gemara. So we talked about entertainment. Now sit with the real entertainment, the Gemara, Mitzvah Hashem, the rest of the morning.